Now, that last segment, we installed the battery. This motorcycle is actually ready to put gas into and start up. However, that's just the assembly. Will the bike run? Could you ride it right now? Yes, you could. Is it safe? No, it's not. And also, it's not reliable. So we want to go through what we do in the shop, which is a pre-delivery inspection, or in your case, a pre-driving inspection. We want to go through a lot of inspections and checks, and also make some adjustments to the mechanics of this motorcycle so that it's safe and reliable before you take it for your first test ride. The very first thing we're going to do is go through a lot of electrical checks, and that only requires a few simple tools. We're going to start with this number 2 Phillips and a 10mm socket, and focus our attention first on the headlamp. There are 4 fasteners holding the headlight in the headlight bucket, and these require a number 2 Phillips to remove. They're at each of the corners of that bucket. We're going to remove those and then just completely remove the headlamp from that housing so that we can expose all the electrical wiring. There are a lot of electrical connections that feed and just are stored in that bucket. We want to check those and check the wires into each of the plastic fittings. Now, the check we want to make is that each of these plugs is securely clipped in, but also each of the individual wires. So we inspect the tabs to make sure everything looks okay, that those male tabs are going to go into the female slots. And then I can gently but firmly pull on each individual wire on these plugs. There's 1, 2, 3 plugs. And make sure those wires and those tabs are pushed all the way in. They're clicked in where they should be, both sides of it, and then refasten those securely. Same thing with the bullet connectors. We're going to make sure each of those is pulled in firmly and securely fastened into each other for good electrical connections. One other inspection we can make, and if you ever need to make an adjustment to the height of your headlamp, you're going to want to remove that front and then loosen these pieces. This is fasteners, what's holding the bucket to the clamps. When we're inspecting it, we want to make sure that they're securely fastened and tight, otherwise that nut can back out and fall into the bucket and you'll lose your screw on the other side. So just check those, check the torque value on them, and take note of that in case you ever want to adjust your headlamp. You would loosen those first, make your adjustment, and then tighten them back down. Now we're ready to reinstall the headlamp. You'll note that the little plastic tab is going to mount under here in the bucket. So we're going to put the top end in first and then put our screws back in. One inspection with the headlight is the brackets and the alignment of the headlight. If you ever need to adjust from side to side, what you're going to want to do is take the tension off of all the fasteners, including the 2 main fasteners which require that headlamp to be out. Then start from the back and work your way forward. So you would start with the smaller ones, aligning those clamps, and then finally tighten this down where you want it. Now, another electrical check we're going to make is that of the charging system. We want to check all of those electrical plugs and wires. We're going to remove the left side panel and then the fuel tank as well, just so we can get to the regulator under there and check several connections. Now, take precaution with the left side panel. It's mounted more rigidly than the right side panel. You're still going to pull gently and firmly from the top 2 corners, but you'll note that there's a metal rod that's holding the bottom in place. Now we can use a 10mm socket to remove the tank. As we remove the tank, of Of course, it's easier to do with 2 sets of hands because we're going to disconnect the electric wire that's coming from the fuel gauge. There's also 2 hoses that are still connected now from the factory. One actually is not connected. The fat hose is just a drain for the cavity of the gas cap area. And there is one vent hose that's connected to the emissions can. So we're going to disconnect that and then remove the tank from the motorcycle. We're able to do that. The petcock's not attached to the carburetor yet. Now that we have the fuel tank and the side panels off, we want to check multiple electrical connections. We can start up here, pulling back some of these sheaths. These are just protective sheaths. We can expose the wires. They're bullet connectors. We want to make sure that all of these are securely fastened. You'll note that one's an empty, female slot. But each of these plugs, we're going to just pull the wires gently to make sure that they're all clicked in. Each individual wire is clicked in the way it should be. And then we're going to make sure that there's a firm and securely fastened plug. Another plug. Under here, our rectifier. So this is part of our charging system. Same thing, we're going to pull these back, check all these. Multiple plugs here. We've got a ground wire here, and then also a plug coming off of the starter relay. So we want to check all of those individually. The final inspection we want to do with the electrical is that of the ground wire, which is typically mounted on the case of the engine behind the front sprocket cover. So we're going to remove the front sprocket cover with an 8mm socket. There are 2 fasteners. This will also let us take a look, just a visual inspection of the front sprocket. And we're going to move that mount from the case back to the front of the sprocket cover. And what that'll enable us to do later on down the road is just routinely check and make sure that that is securely fastened. Mounting the ground wire to that top mount on the front sprocket cover gives us quick and easy access and just a quick visual that the ground wire is securely fastened. Although the motorcycle will run with the ground wire disconnected, it can damage other parts, small grounds within the wiring harness. So anytime you start the motorcycle, you want to make sure that ground wire is securely fastened. Another electrical inspection we can make is that of the coil and spark plug. We can make sure that this ground is nice, secure, and fastened, and then also that the wire is firmly pushed into the coil, and that the cap on the spark plug is pushed down. I'll often find them just resting on there. Really make sure that it goes over that spark plug. A very important check before riding or starting the motorcycle is that of the oil level. So I can do that with the bike standing upright on level ground and not running. I'm going to look at the sight window. Anywhere between the half and the top, you're good. You could also check it with the dipstick by unscrewing it, but the sight window is just as accurate as anything. Right now, there's a lightweight factory oil in there to help with the break-in. Your first break-in service is at 500 miles, so do not go over 500 miles without changing your oil. Normally in the shop, our first oil change at that break-in service is with conventional motorcycle oil. And we've got a 10W40 and a 20W50. I would use the 10W40 if I was in temperatures that could be below freezing or really cold. And the 20W50 is perfect for Southern California. We don't normally reach freezing temperatures here. After that first service, we'll switch over to synthetic. And I've got two different levels of synthetic here. This is the Pro Plus by Maxima, another good oil. Same thing, we've got that in the 10W40 and 20W50. Motul is slightly higher quality. We've actually had some of our motorcycles that have thermostats or thermometers running on them show that they're running at cooler temperatures. So this is really good stuff. This is what I run in my bikes. If you can take the 20W50, this is a great option for you. Now that we've remounted the fuel tank, we made sure that that emissions line, the small vent hose, had a nice round shape to it. It's not pinched over. It goes to the check valve. The other end of the hose going to the emissions canister. All of that's free flowing. We made sure that we tucked the drain from the cavity of the gas cap back in the frame. It's just kind of hanging to nowhere. We reconnected the fuel gauge sensor wire. And now we're ready to connect the fuel line to the petcock. So this one end of the fuel line goes to the carburetor. And the other end, we're just gonna there, we're over the petcock. Same thing, we want to make sure that this is a nice smooth flowing hose. There are no kinks in it. And then we can turn the petcock to the off position for now. Now I'm going to check the function of the choke using the lever on the handlebar. What I'm looking for is that it flows freely, and then when it's in the off position, there's a little slack in the cable. There is an adjustment up near the handlebar where you can remove some tension or put tension on the choke cable, but you want to make sure that there's no pressure pulling on that choke when it's in the off position. Now we want to inspect the shifter. You can adjust this shifter by using the adjusting rod in the middle, or if you needed to remove it from the spline drive, you could do that. But what I'm going to do right now is just check the tension on that pinch bolt that's actually coming off the shaft. And then I'm also going to want to use that 10mm wrench and a 6mm wrench. I'll use the 6 in the middle of the shift rod just to ensure that these lock nuts are securely fastened. Another inspection we want to make is that of the rear wheel and the rear drivetrain, in particularly the adjusters on the swing arm as well as the axle nut. This is also a good time to go ahead and lube your chain if you haven't done so. It does come with some lubrication from the factory. You're not going to need the cleaner just yet, but I would recommend you going ahead and lubing up that chain. Get it a good nice coat of lubricant on there. This is something you're going to want to do periodically anyway to help prolong the life of the chain, help with performance. I'm going to use a 13 mil to make sure my adjusters lock nuts are tight. I've already verified that this rear wheel is sitting square in the swing arm, and I've already checked my chain tension. If you need to make an adjustment to that, we do have videos showing how to do that. Another check we're going to make is that of the axle nut. I want to put about 45 foot-pounds of torque on that nut. And I'm going to do that with a 19mm wrench. Two other inspections and an adjustment, I would say, of the rear wheel is that of the spokes. You want to kind of grab around and get a handful of those spokes. Make sure there are none that are loose. If there are any loose ones, just give it a little bit of torque by tightening the individuals. And then also that adjustment of the air pressure. I like to run 36 PSI front and rear on this motorcycle. It gives a little grip and cushion to the road, but it's enough pressure to really kind of hold the shape of the tire and make them last longer. Now we're going to inspect the front wheel. We're going to check out those spokes, just making sure there's tension, there are no loose spokes in there. And then following that, we will adjust that tire pressure as well. We want to put that one at 36 to match the rear. Anywhere between 32 and 40, you're probably okay, but I like 36. It's just a nice, good feel. Another check we want to make is that of the rear suspension. We're going to use a 16mm socket just to verify that the cap covers are on there secure and securely fastened. If you need to back them off to get that plastic out, that's okay. And then we're just going to turn back. I'd say somewhere around 30 foot-pounds is a nice torque value for those. And we'll check left and right. Another check we can make is of the front suspension. We're going to check these triple trees using an 8mm Allen and then a 6mm Allen on each side. So a total of 4 checks that we're making. Make sure those are in there nice and snug, firm. Now I'm ready to check all of the functions of the electrical. So I'm going to turn the ignition on, the dash lights up, the halo comes on. Of course, the headlamp comes on when the bike's running. It's a part of the charging circuit. But I will check my turn signals, front and rear left, front and rear right. My tail light is on. I'm going to check the brake light function, hand brake, foot brake, my horn. And now we're ready to fire it up. Now, after a quick test ride, I want to make 2 adjustments here. One is going to be of the idle speed. I've got it up to running temperature now, what I feel like running temperature is. And I'm going to adjust, I feel like the idle is just a little low. I'm going to increase that. You'll notice that there are some fumes and smoke burning off of the engine. This is like a packing oil or packing grease they use to prevent corrosion during shipment. I made the adjustment to my idle speed. I'm gonna get this back in the shop and make an adjustment to my shift lever. I realized that I was having a little difficulty shifting. I wanna lower that level just a little bit. Other than that, this bike's ready to rock and roll. Congratulations again on your bike in a box. You can see with just some simple hand tools and taking your time to go through the correct procedures, you can have a reliable motorcycle. Be sure to check out all the accessories, stay on top of your routine maintenance, but most importantly, enjoy the ride.